everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today on this day, I get the pleasure of sitting down with a gentleman by the name of Malcolm Dill. He is an educator in the New York area. He's the author of a children's book series, and I am so looking forward to hearing more about how he is impacting our future generation's life. But first and foremost, as I always do, sir, I take a quick moment to pause, say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we cannot get it back. So I truly appreciate you setting aside this time to sit down and talk with little old me. And with that, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Lana. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So we've got a little bit of time together today, and I got a lot of stuff I want to pack in. So let me get going here. But as we get started, before I start talking about your life as an educator, I want to talk about this young guy that is very important in your life. This amazing young gentleman named Marvin. Can you please tell us how he came to be and who is he?
Yes. So Marvin, you see here pictured on my children's book, is the protagonist in my children's book series. He's a 7-year-old second grader who takes kids ages 5 to 10 on a journey of all of his first experiences. His first being at school, and he's not feeling it at all. It's a great series, and it's based a lot of the character and who Marvin is comes from my students. I've taken remnants of them and sort of like put it all together to create this character who has a very vivid imagination and who is highly verbal and about his wants and needs. He's a self-advocate. He stands up for himself. So he's a role model for kids who are in school and how they can, be a part of their own educational journeys.
So I like it. And I saw there was a older gentleman standing next to him. Is that you or?
So you would have to read the book to find out. No, I'm just kidding. So this is his imaginary teacher who happens to be a giant in the book.
Okay.
But as you go through the book, you'll find out that he does have a Black male teacher, because who else would I have to be his teacher? And just to see the visual and the way that they interact with one another in the book is just another highlight, and one of the reasons why I decided to put out this series.
Okay. Well, and let me be a little nosy and get a little backstory, because I was roaming around the website and, my female eyes was picking everything.
Uh-oh.
And I saw HBCU. Did you go to HBCU, or is that a plug
did.
there, or?
I did. Yeah. So I attended Houston. I went to an HBC in Houston by the name of Texas Southern University.
Awesome. Okay.
And just an amazing experience. It was there that I was first introduced to media criticism and how media plays in to our perspectives and our experiences as Black and Brown people today. And is one of the reasons why I decided to go into a space of writing a children's book as a way to influence that form of media to create better experiences for kids. And it also in the book, there is a page. Let's see if I can quickly find it here. See if we can show a little HBCU pride.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I saw. I said, okay. I said somewhere that is there for a reason. I said, okay, that has meaning.
Okay. Representation for sure.
That's right. So it's a series of books. So this is the first one to come out.
Yeah, so it's a series of books. This is the first one that I released last year. The second book I'm hoping to release. We're in the illustration phase now, wrapping that up, hoping to be able to launch that before Thanksgiving. It is a long process, and I have a lot of patience. So
there you go. Well, you teach the young ones. We were talking about that before we start taping. So you teach the young ones. So you have to have patience.
Absolutely.
And with that, how do they feel about their teacher being an author? Is that, cool to them?
They think I'm famous.
You are.
I'm famous to y'all. Like, I'm not there yet. Let's be clear. But no, it's been great. I've had the opportunity to read my book with them. My second grade class from last year was with me from the very beginning of my journey. I sort of like beta tested my book on them and, read it to them before we even, colored in the pages. And I had them give me feedback on the different characters. And surprisingly,
Mm.
they gave me some really good feedback I was not ready for, that had me go back to the drawing table and redo some things. And I think that, yeah, they've really enjoyed it. It sits in 12 libraries across 2 campuses because our elementary school is split up into 2 campuses. So, sorry, 12 in classroom libraries. And so it's great to see them engaging with the book. Sometimes I'll just be walking by and I'll see 2 or 3 of them gathered around, like looking at the images. So I said, mission
That's
accomplished.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful because I'm pretty sure the young people are saying, well, Mr. Dill paid us attention and he put our input in the book. Nobody pays attention to us, but Mr. Dill pays us attention. So I think that's that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, Brooklyn School District, you're in the public school district?
I am. I'm not in public, sorry, I'm in charter school district. So I
Oh, okay.
teach at a charter school in Washington Heights,
Okay.
called the Equity Project Charter School.
Okay.
And I've been there for 2 years now. Prior to that, I was at another KIPP school here in here in New York, and have really enjoyed my charter experience. I know there's a lot of um, you know, the charter school world gets a lot of flack.
Hmm.
Rightfully so. There are a lot of things that could be reworked. And but as far as me, myself, I've had some very positive experiences, and have had opportunities to really make an impact.
Okay. Now, New York is made up of boroughs. So are all the school districts one or is it by borough? Borough.
No, so we're all under the Department of Education.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you're asking if the charter schools are by borough? I'm sorry.
Borough. So is it like borough of Department of Education? But it's just New York Department of Education, right?
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
You have, your private and charter schools. We're based in Washington Heights, though.
Okay, okay, awesome. All right. Well, let me segue to your life as an educator because that's what brought us to the book in the first place. And as I said, I was roaming around the website, being as nosy as I could possibly be, and I saw your speaker one sheet. And one of the things that you are responsible for is a curriculum developer.
Yeah.
And to the layperson, that is. So I was wondering if you could break that down. What actually do you do and what you're responsible for?
Yeah, I think curriculum development looks very different in many spaces. I'll explain how it has come to fruition in my life. I had the opportunity to work with an awesome literacy-based organization here in Harlem by the name of Barbershop Books. I don't know if you're familiar.
Sounds familiar.
And with Barbershop Books, so just to give you a little bit about them, they place child-friendly reading spaces
Yeah.
in Black-owned barbershops now all across the nation, coming up on 400 or plus, I believe. And I met Alvin Irby, the founder and CEO of Barbershop Books, back in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. And he asked me, he was like, hey, Malcolm, I have this great idea for a reading program, but it's not going to be your typical reading program. I said, okay, cool. So the premise of the program, the name of it is Reading So Lit. And the premise is to get Black and brown boys ages 6 to 8 to read for fun, outside of school hours, and just because it's something that they want to do.
Mm,
And when he pitched it to me in that way, I said, I'm on board right away. And I think what caught my attention right away is the fact that he was truly creating a positive reading experience for this niche group of young kids, Black and brown boys, ages 6 to 8. And so that first year, I beta tested the program for him. I actually acted as a summer educator where
right.
I actually taught the lessons that he had sort of, you know, written out. There were
Mhm.
10 lessons that went across 4 weeks. And then once that was complete, he wanted to bring me on as a curriculum developer. And so the way that that's played out for me is that I basically took what he already did and expounded on that, created different modules, used those, found other ways to make the content even more engaging. One of the aspects of Reading So Lit is they talk about the idea of a reading spot, right? And
Yeah.
a reading spot can be anywhere that you want it to be. It could be on the bus. It could be imaginary. It could be on a mountaintop, somewhere that you've never been before. Why? Because it's your imagination. So your reading spot can be in your living room. You can build a fort. You can read in that. You can read in your backyard. And so this idea of a reading spot is a great example of the approach that Alvin and his team takes to literacy, is that literacy is something that can be personalized. It is something that can be customized. It is something that you can pour and create for yourself. And it's unique, unique.
Mm.
And that is what makes your reading experience yours. That is what brings you closer to this act of reading. And I think that is the goal, just to get Black and brown boys who, in the past have struggled and continue to struggle with identity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about identity as it relates to reading, there's just like an even larger gap. And so that organization has sought to close that gap, and I was happy to be along on the journey.
Awesome. Now you mentioned ages 6 to 8. Have you found that that is the sweet spot? Is that why you picked that? They picked that age?
So Alvin initially chose that age group, and I think that he chose that age group primarily because we didn't, when we were initially writing this program, we didn't want to go too broad, too.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so now we've scaled this program to appeal to kids K-5. Uh,
Okay.
and so back then, the program was all done in a workbook. We've since taken, or Barbershop Books has since taken that workbook and turned it into a digital platform, which
Yeah, I think I've seen it on the website. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. It's coming
which
to me now.
now, yeah, which can now be implemented into K-5 classrooms anywhere. So there are two
Awesome.
versions to that. I don't want to talk too much about it, but that Reading So Lit is my baby. So there's the Reading So Lit classroom platform, right, where teachers and homeschool parents can implement, for their kids. But there's also Reading So Lit Summer, which is in the process of recruiting students, Black and brown boys ages 6 to 8, anywhere in the US, as long as they have a computer and working internet, to go through this program that we created in 2020 and tested. Now they're in the recruiting phase. So if there are any young Black and brown boys ages 6 to 8 or parents that would like their kids to participate in that program, you can visit the Barbershop Books website and look for Reading So Lit Summer.
Awesome. Awesome. Now you've mentioned quite a few times some of the challenges Black and brown boys face when it comes to educational settings. And quite frequently over the past few years, we've heard terms such as school to prison pipeline, but the challenges are much broader than that. Why is it that Black and brown boys often find challenges in educational settings? Why is that even a factor in the first place?
Yeah. Well, ultimately, I do believe that the school system was not built for Black and brown boys. And as Black and brown folks in general, as we saw, history, and history has a way of repeating itself. And a lot of these things that we have thought to have gotten rid of, right? Segregation in schools and all those things, they still sort of come up, especially in a place like New York City. You talk about these boroughs, the boroughs of New York are highly segregated. The communities, it's quite obvious who these schools are for when you go into.
Gotcha.
And so, I talked about this idea of identity. I think that's one of the biggest things, is that we fought so hard to get to where we are. And now that we're here, we still have to fight.
Mm.
And, it gets a little tiring for us who
Yes.
are a little bit older. But for kids who are coming in, we have to still inspire them so that they can, continue to carry on. And fight against the system of oppression.
There you go.
Sure.
There you go. So you're in New York, and for those who know, New York is a very diverse cultural environment, especially
Yes.
when it comes to Black and brown people. So
Mhm.
in educational settings, we have you could possibly have, well, you do have a setup where you have students in one classroom coming from different cultural, linguistic backgrounds. You might have people from Caribbean homes, you might have people from Dominican, Puerto Rican homes. How does an educator effectively make sure they're impacting students, when they're all coming from these different cultural environments?
Yeah. So just a quick plug, I teach in Washington Heights, and for anyone who doesn't know, it is predominantly um, Latinx. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to go even further, you can say predominantly Dominican.
Mm-hmm.
Dominican very heavy Dominican population. And so the school that I teach at in Washington Heights has well over 80% Dominican population.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the students speak Spanish, or English is not their first language. They live in a household where, their parents, continue to speak Spanish, even though, the children are, learning how to speak English. And so I say all that to say is that I've learned many different ways that we can impact groups of folks, right? And so I think what I've learned from this school is that communication is key. Communicating with parents and being able to advocate for them in ways that you may not have had to in the past. And so, for me, that looks like making sure that there's a translator present in any meeting if a parent needs it, whether it's a parent conference meeting, whether it's an IEP meeting, making sure that any deliverables or letters that go home, they're translated. I've never used Google Translate so much in my life. But I do it, I do it for the families, and I do it for the kids. And yes, it takes a little bit longer to post. Yes, it takes a little bit longer to create flyers because I have to do it twice, but it's worth it. Why? Because everyone is a part, of this journey. And so I feel that, coming from, I taught in a school that was not predominantly Latinx for 5 years. And I will be honest, it was more comfortable. It was more comfortable because I
Mm.
felt, now that I'm comparing it to, I didn't have to do as much, right? Um, but just that phrase, right? I didn't have to do as much, really, really shows uh, it speaks to the amount of work that teachers have to put in. People think about the grades and they think about the teaching. It's more than that. It's about the
Mm.
relationship building. It's about the communication and the advocacy. It's about all of these pieces that people don't see. And that's what makes the job hard. Because now when you start talking about advocacy, it's like, whoa, what are you advocating?
True.
Okay, what laws are, in play here? I teach general education and special education. And so in that space, it's, there's just many ways that we get pushback from, the powers that be.
The
And so,
powers that be. Got you, got you. Now you mentioned you having to do like double work so that you're translating so that when it goes home to the parents, they can understand. I mean, there's another aspect of what you do that I saw as an author when you're doing your speaking engagements. You do SEL activities and workshops, and parents might not be aware of what that is. So for a parent stepping into a classroom and they're looking at a teacher, what should they be looking for when it comes to this concept of SEL, or even explain it? Because parents might even know that they're
yeah.
supposed to be having this in the first place.
Yeah. So SEL stands for social emotional learning. And it's this idea of thought to where everyone in the classroom should be able to have access to, the content, should be able to have access to whatever the activities are. And one way that I bring SEL into the music classroom is giving kids an opportunity to talk about where they're from, to talk about, we have flag day sometimes, or we'll have like a community flag day where kids bring their country's flag. And like I said, I work in Washington Heights, so all of those flags are from DR. Another way that I bring social emotional learning is giving kids an opportunity to talk through any strong feelings that they have. Again, I teach music, but yes, I'm a music teacher, but at the same time, I'm a counselor, right? I'm an advocate,
Mhm.
I'm a mentor. Um, I help keep the peace in the classroom. There's a lot of drama that goes down in the second grade
Mm.
classroom. Um, and so just giving them the space to talk about, whatever the strong feelings are. Also in my classroom, I have a space for kids to calm down, right?
Okay.
Another example of SEL, we're giving kids strategy. So in that corner, it's not only comfortable and colorful, but there's also a chart that gives kids different ways for them to calm down, like calming down strategies. There are different tools and trinkets that they can use that appeal to some kids and may appeal to others. If you go a little bit deeper, this may not be obvious to parents who are not familiar with teaching, but just thinking about how the teacher is framing the questions to making sure that everyone in the classroom has access. Looking at the handouts that are going out, how are the handouts appealing to one group of people, but how are they modified to support
Mhm.
learners? And so social emotional learning has many different pieces. That's what it looks like in the music classroom. But yeah, I think it can look like many different ways.
Wow. Oh, you mentioned your second graders. I had a picture in my mind of what's the spinoff of the show? Real second graders of Washington Heights, huh? The chaos.
Yeah. Probably more drama.
More
Listen,
drama.
somebody took somebody's slime today. It was
Just
it,
chaos.
it
The world was coming
was
to an
it
end, right?
was a big deal.
He was like, man, at this age, these are the problems I have to deal with. Slime. Okay. Okay.
And we laugh about that, but watching kids
Mm,
deal with those problems, and thinking about the impact that we have on them in those moments will really help them deal with bigger problems later.
yeah, conflict resolution. It's a lifelong skill. So yeah, yeah. You know, let me ask you, let's say you were given the job one day to kind of walk the halls of the maternity ward for parents who have just given birth, and you had the task of giving new parents advice on how to set their child up for lifelong educational success right out the gate. What would you tell those parents?
Introduce them to the world of literacy as early as possible. I am a true believer that literacy is freedom.
Mhm.
Literacy is the key for kids to be able to achieve their desires and their dreams. And so literacy is the it's the one ingredient that if it's not there, things will go awry. And so I think that introducing literacy to, and so that means like reading to your kids, helping them build a classroom library. I'm sorry, at-home library, one that is functional, one that is forever changing, is constantly being built upon, taking them to library, taking advantage of the resources that are free and available to communities. I don't think that parents do that enough, and it's not because they don't want to. It's simply because they just don't know. Uh,
Mm,
and time is something that a lot of parents don't have a lot of, in between
mhm,
working and sometimes they'll have just one kid is enough. Let's not even talk about parents that has that have
mhm,
two, three, but um I know that it is a big barrier for for parents, and so literacy, introducing kids to that as early as possible, and in different modes. One of the things, going back to barbershop books, one of the things that I like about barbershop books is that they don't shy away from the electronics. There's a unit that we wrote entitled How Do Kids Read? And it talks about the different modes of reading, right? Kids
mhm,
could listen to an audiobook. Kids could read a book from a physical book. They could read a book from, an iPad or, whatever it is. There are many different ways to read. And so, don't introduce them to just one. Figure out
Yeah.
which one works for them, and introduce that as early as possible.
Awesome, awesome. So will we be seeing Marvin on the cartoon digital space soon?
So, Lana, you have some good questions.
Nosy like that. I'm just
Um, I have been working with an animator for the last month or so. I have a few projects, that are working. That one is sort of placed on hold for funding reasons.
yeah.
No. And so as I constantly find connect with different partners that are interested in bringing um, Marvin to kids in a myriad of ways. Yes, one is I am very interested in bringing him as an animated character for sure. So it's
Oh,
something to come. Will it happen this year? I can only hope and pray, but soon for sure.
awesome. I love it. And you and Marvin have an engagement coming up soon. We can sit down and
We
talk to you, connect you,
do.
shake your hand and everything.
Yes, yes, yes. So our Juneteenth celebration, so it's called Marvin's First Day, a Juneteenth celebration. We will be in downtown Brooklyn at City Point Mall. Um, and we'll have different activities for kids to do. There will be Juneteenth cookie making. There will be some Juneteenth friendship bracelet making. But in addition to that, I'll be doing a read aloud of my book, Marvin's Second Day.
Oh, that's too funny. Too
Marvin's
funny.
Second Day. I'll be doing a read aloud. It'll actually be a co-read aloud with a former student of mine turned New York City poet laureate. His name is Caden Hearn. You'll have to bring him onto the show.
Awesome.
Um,
Oh
he's 10 years old. And he's spoken all around the U.S. He's spoke at Governor Hochul's inauguration. He's spoken for the NAACP.
yeah.
So many amazing things. He'll be there we'll be doing a co-reading of the book, and he'll also be reciting some original poetry. And so that's going to be amazing. It'll be in downtown Brooklyn on June 15th. And if you want more information about that, you can visit me on Instagram at Marvin's First Day.
Awesome. I love it. One more question. Well, two more questions, and I'm going to let you go. Uh, maybe three. Maybe three. Um, quite clearly, you are a Black male,
I am.
and it's very rare in the educational space that we see Black men as educators. In combination with the fact that we are hearing in droves, people are leaving the educational space as careers today. It's has a lasting impact. If you had to give the pep talk to your brothers out there to say, "I need you to consider teaching as a career," what would you say to them?
Um, the field is for us. We are needed uh, more so. Don't let the naysayers be the reason why you don't pursue a career in education. There are many different ways to be an entrepreneur. I'm sorry, entrepreneur. I'm getting there. To be a teacher and to be an entrepreneur, and I think that goes a long way for our Black men who have passions outside of teaching. Uh,
Okay.
and that has been the saving grace for me, being able to do um, my side gig, right? Being able to do the other thing that I'm passionate about while
Okay.
while I'm teaching. And so, um, yeah, I would say do your own research. And if you need support, reach out to another Black male educator. I'm always here to, give advice, to be a listening ear, to guide you to resources. There are a plethora of resources out there, especially for Black and brown male educators who want to come into the field, and definitely something that you should advocate for. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. There's only like 2% of you guys in the educational
yeah.
space. And that's really, I mean, we need to change that. I mean, just clearly we need to change that.
And when you think about the elementary classroom, that 2% is slowly dwindling. Even lower. New research, I believe, is closer to 1% now. Uh,
Wow.
so Yeah, we're leaving the classroom, we're leaving the field of education, but we don't have to, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, before I ask my random question, let me ask you this. If you had a magic wand and could change one thing about the educational space arena today, what would you change?
That's a good question. I think the the most important thing would be uh, I would change this idea of having schools um, in certain communities, and it's where it's supposed to, represent, a diverse school. But when you walk into the doors, there's nothing diverse about the campus. I think, in addition to that, I think schools should be more connected to their communities, and I don't think that there is enough connection. For
Mm,
many communities, schools are a safe space for kids, for families. Uh, but I've seen communities where they aren't. They operate as a business. They
mm,
operate, uh, as a nonprofit, but they are more than that, right? And so I would change um, the level of engagement schools provide to their local communities, for sure.
okay, all right. Well, it sounds like, in a few years, we'll either see Mr. Dill be principal or superintendent
We
or
don't
something
know.
like, okay, well, we got some work to be done. Let me ask my random question.
Uh-oh.
I'm just speaking a whole bunch of stuff into existence here, but all
I,
right.
I, I, re- I received it. I
There you
received it.
go. Thank you. So let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here. If you won $1 million, what would be the first thing you buy?
Ooh. A good animator, because we talked about it. I would fund all my
Say this
Marvin.
project is not gonna fund itself, right?
Marvin gets all my dollars these days. um, but outside of that, I think that the first thing that I would buy is I would buy a house, and I would have in that house one of the best, curated libraries. Um,
Oh,
libraries that consist of books of Black and Brown authors all around the U.S. Yeah, I think so.
okay.
That would
You're
be
not gonna buy a house in New York. That's what, $18 million just for a one bedroom.
1 million is not enough.
No, we're not gonna buy that with this.
Not enough.
All right. All righty, dear. So one more time, give us the website and socials, anything we can do to connect with you, just give it all to us.
Yeah, you can find me on all socials at Marvin's First Day. You can visit my website at marvinsfirstday.com. You can find me
Awesome.
on LinkedIn as Malcolm Anthony Dill.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I thank you for your time today, but more importantly, I thank you for your patience with our little ones, our future generation, and your classroom of real second graders of Washington Heights. I appreciate your patience with them.
Oh, watch that show.
And it'll be interesting, 20 years from now for them to say, you know what, if it hadn't been for Mr. Deal, I wouldn't be the man or woman that I am today. He had the patience with us. He taught us so much. And, I think that's what educators are so important, so important. And it's just so important for them to see, a Black man standing in front of them, because so many times the messaging is wrong once they get out into this world. It's so convoluted. So I just appreciate you. And from little old me, just from little old me, I just thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you for everything that you do in creating a safe space for Black and brown men like myself. I appreciate it.
That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.